What to do when life feels meaningless. A Stoic perspective. 1. Acknowledge the feeling without judgment. Sometimes life just feels heavy. Not because anything tragic happened, not because you made a mistake, but simply because everything starts to feel meaningless. You wake up, go through the motions, answer messages, cross things off the list, and yet deep down there's a quiet, unsettling question. What's the point of all this? If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. Even the wisest minds in history felt the same. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors of Rome, a Stoic philosopher whose words still guide millions, often wrote about his own internal battles. He faced wars, betrayals, illness, and endless responsibility. But even more than that, he faced himself. In his private writings, he asked, why go on? What does it mean to live well? What if it's all just dust and noise? And yet, he didn't judge himself for asking those questions. He met them with honesty, curiosity, and calm. That's where we begin. When life feels meaningless, the first step is not to fix it, but to feel it, without judgment. To say, yes, I feel empty today. Yes, this moment feels flat, colorless, confusing. Yes, I don't see the point right now. And that's okay, because the truth is, you are not the first to feel this, and you will not be the last. In a world obsessed with constant positivity and productivity, we're taught to outrun discomfort, to distract it, to bury it under noise, work, or empty affirmations. But the Stoics teach us something radical, to face it, to stand still, breathe deeply, and say, I see you, emptiness. I see you, doubt. I won't fight you. I'll sit beside you. Why? Because the moment you stop fighting how you feel, you stop making it worse. Suffering often grows in the soil of resistance. But when we allow ourselves to simply acknowledge, something begins to shift. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you always own the option of having no opinion. It sounds simple, but think about what that really means. You don't need to label the feeling. You don't need to spiral into overthinking. You don't need to diagnose or fix it right away. You can just notice, this is what my mind is offering today. And that's all. It's a moment, a wave, a season. It is not your identity. It is not a life sentence. It is just a human experience. Imagine if you treated your own thoughts the way you treat a cloud. You wouldn't chase it. You wouldn't yell at it. You wouldn't assume it means something terrible is happening. You just watch it float by. And you'd remember, clouds pass, so do feelings. But we have to be kind enough and patient enough to let them. A life well lived doesn't mean never feeling lost. It means learning to stay steady in the fog, to trust that clarity will return, and in the meantime, you can still live with grace. When life feels meaningless, it doesn't mean something's gone wrong. It just means you're human, reflective, deep feeling, awake. And that's not a problem to solve. That's a signal that you're alive. So today, don't run from the question. Let it sit with you. Let it soften you. Let it remind you that even the great philosophers asked it too. And slowly with time, your inner clarity will return. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed space for it to grow. Start there, not with judgment, but with acceptance, with compassion, with honesty, because that is the first real step toward meaning. 2, question the source of meaninglessness. When life feels meaningless, the feeling often arrives like fog, quiet, heavy, and hard to name. But behind every fog, there's a source. And sometimes what feels like emptiness is really something else in disguise. So before we try to fix the feeling, let's ask a deeper question. Where is this coming from? Maybe it's boredom, the kind that comes from repetition, routine, and lack of challenge. You're doing the same things in the same way for the same reasons, and you've started to feel numb, or maybe it's burnout. You've been trying so hard for so long that your soul has grown quiet under the weight of constant pressure. You've achieved some goals, you've stayed busy, but somewhere in the noise, you forgot why you started in the first place. Maybe it's comparison, a thief in modern clothing. You scroll through other people's highlight reels and suddenly your life feels small, slow, and behind. You question your worth not based on your values, but on someone else's timeline. Or maybe it's disconnection from yourself, from nature, from deeper conversation. You're surrounded by people and information, but feel more alone than ever. Here's the truth. Meaning doesn't vanish, it gets buried. And to uncover it, we must ask honest questions. The Stoics believed in self-inquiry. They urged us not just to react to life, but to examine it. So ask yourself this: what definition of meaning am I unconsciously using? Because often what makes us feel meaningless is not the absence of purpose, but the wrong idea of what purpose should look like. Are you measuring your worth by your salary, your looks, your number of followers, your productivity? Society teaches us that success equals meaning, but the Stoics disagreed. To them, meaning came from how you lived, not what you achieved. They valued virtue over visibility, character over recognition, process over outcome. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask himself, "Am I famous?" He asked, "Did I live with justice, courage, and truth today?" Seneca didn't ask, "Am I doing more than others?" He asked, "Am I living in alignment with my nature?" Epictetus didn't say, "Find your meaning in the opinions of the crowd." He said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." So maybe it's not life that has lost meaning. Maybe it's the lens you've been looking through. Maybe your soul is tired of chasing someone else's definition of success. Maybe your heart is whispering, "There's more to life than this, but less than you think." Maybe the answer isn't out there. Maybe it's already inside you, quiet, simple, and waiting. Meaning doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't require applause. It can live in the small things: a kind word spoken with sincerity, a choice made with integrity, a morning spent writing, walking, wondering, a moment of stillness where you remember who you are. So take a breath. Before you chase another goal, buy another thing, or scroll for another hour, pause. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? Not to society, not to my past self, not to my friends, but to me, here now. Let your own definition of meaning rise softly, slowly from within, because maybe life isn't meaningless. Maybe you're just being invited to redefine what a meaningful life looks like for you. 3. Reconnect with inner purpose, not external validation. What if the reason life feels hollow is because you've been living it for everyone except yourself? We spend so much time trying to be enough for our families, our bosses, our social media feeds, that we slowly forget who we are without the applause. But the Stoics offer us a gentle, grounded reminder. Meaning doesn't come from being impressive. It comes from being aligned. Marcus Aurelius never asked, "Will people admire me for this?" He asked, "Is this the right thing to do? Am I acting with justice and integrity? Would I still choose this if no one ever noticed?" And that is the question that brings us home to ourselves. Because a meaningful life isn't one that's praised. It's one that feels true to your values, to your nature, to your inner compass. The Stoics taught that meaning is not out there waiting to be found. It's something you create day by day by living with intention, not in what you have, but in how you live, not in your achievements, but in your virtue. They focused on 4 core values that shape the inner life: courage, to face fear, discomfort, and truth; wisdom, to choose what's right over what's easy; temperance, to live with balance, restraint, and simplicity; justice, to act fairly with kindness and compassion toward others. When you align your actions with these values, you begin to live a life that feels whole, regardless of recognition. Because it's not the outcome that gives you peace, it's the alignment. Epictetus said, "Seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourselves." It's a powerful truth, especially in a world that tells us otherwise. Modern life says you'll be happy when they like you. You'll be fulfilled when you succeed. You'll be worthy when you prove it. But the Stoic path says you are enough when you live in harmony with your deepest values. Not someday, now. So maybe it's not about changing your life overnight. Maybe it's about changing how you live within it. Can you speak more honestly? Can you act more patiently? Can you show up more fully, even in small, unseen moments? This is how meaning begins to return. Not with a loud announcement, but with quiet integrity. You might not get applause for making the kind choice. You might not go viral for choosing simplicity over ego, but you will feel something far more lasting: peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you lived today in a way that honored your soul. You lived not to be seen, but to be true. Not to impress, but to align. And in that alignment, you find your purpose again. So pause today. Ask gently, what do I value? What small choice can I make today that reflects that value? Am I living for the world or from within? You don't need more success. You don't need more validation. What you need is to come back to the simple, sacred center of your life, the part of you that knows what matters and is brave enough to live it. because that's where your purpose lives, and it's been waiting for you to return. 4. Serve something greater than yourself. There's a quiet truth about meaning, one that the modern world often forgets. You won't find it in what you consume, you'll find it in what you give. We live in a time of endless options. Watch more, buy more, scroll more, escape more. But somehow, despite having access to everything, we still feel empty. Why? Because we weren't made to just consume life. We were made to contribute to it. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that a meaningful life is not one centered on the self, but one that radiates outward. Seneca wrote, "No one can live happily who has regard only for themselves." In other words, when life feels meaningless, maybe the answer isn't to take more in, but to give more out, to step outside your own mind for a moment and do something that helps someone else breathe easier. Help someone. Listen when you have no answers. Offer your presence, not just your opinion. Share what you know. Create something, anything that makes the world even a little bit better. Not for credit, not for likes, just because it matters, because you matter, because your existence, your story, your voice can be of use. And in being of use, we begin to feel whole again. There's a reason why when we do something kind for someone, we feel a sudden sense of warmth. It's not just emotion, it's alignment. It's our inner self recognizing, this is why I'm here. You don't have to save the world, but you can reach out. You can speak gently. You can offer your hands, your heart, your attention. And when you do, life slowly becomes less about me and more about we. Contribution doesn't always look like grand gestures. Sometimes it's writing a kind message, cooking for someone who's tired, teaching what you've learned, standing up quietly for what's right, being the calm voice in a storm. These acts may seem small, but meaning often hides in the small. The Stoics believe that we are all connected, that we share a common humanity, that true fulfillment comes when we live not just for ourselves, but for something bigger. Marcus Aurelius said, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." In other words, if you want to feel purposeful, ask not just what do I want, but also how can I serve? And this is where the fog of meaninglessness begins to lift. Because in contribution, your pain becomes wisdom, your struggle becomes empathy, your voice becomes light. Life regains color not when you get more, but when you give what you already have. Your energy, your insight, your care, even your silence when it holds space for someone else. So if you feel stuck, lost, numb, don't turn inward and stay there. Turn outward. Plant something, write something, encourage someone. Be a student, be a mentor, be a friend. Be a presence, and you will begin to feel life flow again, not as a rush, but as a quiet current of purpose. Because in the end, life isn't just about becoming something, it's about belonging to something greater and serving that, not out of obligation, but out of love. That is meaning. That is power. That is peace. So ask today, who can I help? Even a little. Then go do that. And let the ripple of that act remind you, you still matter. You always have. 5. Focus on what you can control. There's a certain heaviness that comes from trying to control everything. We want to plan every detail, predict every outcome, make sure nothing ever goes wrong. But life doesn't work that way. Storms arrive, people disappoint us, plans fall apart, the world feels chaotic, unpredictable, loud, and in the middle of all that, we feel powerless. But the Stoics saw things differently. They taught us a gentle, powerful truth. You may not control the chaos of the world, but you can always control your response. That's where your freedom lives. Not in rearranging life to fit your expectations, but in mastering how you show up, no matter what happens. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." It sounds simple, but it changes everything. You don't control the weather, but you can carry an umbrella. You don't control how others treat you, but you can choose your words. You don't control the economy, the news, or the noise, but you do control your attention, your reactions, your choices. That's where power lives. Not in outcomes, but in ownership. So when life feels meaningless, when everything feels out of your hands, come back to this question. What is still mine to choose today? It could be the way you breathe when anxiety rises, the way you speak when someone frustrates you, the choice to pause before reacting, the decision to show up anyway, even when you don't feel like it. Purpose is not found in grand sweeping acts. It's built one small, steady choice at a time. That's why the Stoics practiced morning intention and evening reflection. Each morning they would ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? What situations might test me? How can I act with wisdom, courage, and self-control? And each evening they would reflect, where did I do well? Where did I fall short? What can I improve tomorrow? No shame, no judgment, just gentle, honest accountability. Because that's how mastery is built, not overnight, but daily. You can't control whether today will be perfect, but you can choose to greet it with purpose. You can't stop the storm, but you can become still within it. And every time you return to what you can control, you grow stronger, wiser, calmer, not because life got easier, but because you became more anchored. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." So take back that power. Start small. Turn off one notification. Choose a nourishing thought. Respond with patience instead of impulse. Show up for one thing that matters to you today. Let those choices become your practice. Let them become your path back to meaning. Because when you live from the inside out instead of the outside in, you stop chasing control and you start building character. And in the end, that's what lasts. Not the perfect day, not the flawless plan, but the inner strength you build from showing up for what is yours to carry. One breath at a time, one action at a time, one intention at a time. So if today feels heavy, if the world feels too big, too fast, too broken, come back to your circle, the small sacred space of what is in your hands, your words, your habits, your mindset, your response. That is where your meaning lives, and that is where peace begins. 6, embrace the present as enough. We often chase life like it's always somewhere else, in the next goal, the next upgrade, the next version of ourselves that finally has it all together. But here's the question: what if this moment, right now, is already enough? The Stoics believed something radical. Not that we had to escape the ordinary, but that meaning lives within it. Seneca once wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." He didn't mean stuffing every minute with activity. He meant being present enough to actually live it. Because what wastes life isn't lack of time, it's lack of attention. Modern life pulls us forward constantly. There's always a next thing, a better thing, a busier thing. And in all that rushing, we forget the quiet miracle of this moment. The taste of your coffee, the sound of rain, the way someone's smile softens your day. The breath you didn't have to earn, but received anyway. These are not filler moments, they are your life. But it's easy to miss them when your mind is always somewhere else. Comparison, regret, expectation, all of them pull you away from the now and into a story that says, this isn't enough. But what if it is? What if you could pause right now and say, this moment, just as it is worthy of my presence? Marcus Aurelius, in all his responsibility as a Roman emperor, still wrote to himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This wasn't meant to be morbid. It was meant to be liberating, because when you remember that time is fragile, you begin to treat each second as sacred. You stop waiting for life to become meaningful and start making it meaningful right here. Gratitude isn't about ignoring your struggles. It's about refusing to miss the beauty that also exists. It's saying, yes, I'm tired, but I'm here. Yes, things are uncertain, but this breath is mine. Yes, I want to grow, but I won't postpone joy until I become someone else. The present doesn't need to be perfect to be enough. It only needs to be noticed. Try this practice. Each morning, name one thing you already have that you're grateful for. Not something dramatic, something real. Warm water, a conversation, the sky outside your window. And each evening, ask yourself, did I pause today? Did I feel anything fully? Did I look around and let this moment matter? These questions aren't chores, they're anchors. They bring you back to now, where peace is always waiting. The Stoics weren't disconnected from life. They were deeply present to it. They didn't chase every desire. They trained themselves to want what they already had. Because to want less is not to be deprived. It's to be free. Free to appreciate. Free to breathe. Free to let today count. So the next time you think, I need to do more, have more, be more, pause. Look around. Feel the air. Place your hand on your heart. And remember, you're already living the only moment that truly exists now. Because life doesn't have to be extraordinary to be meaningful. You don't need to wait until everything is fixed. Presence is the practice, and peace is the result. So give yourself permission. right now to stop chasing and start being. Let this moment be enough, and you'll discover it always was. 7. Accept the mystery and keep going. There's a quiet kind of pressure many of us carry, this belief that we need to figure everything out, to find the big answers, to know where we're going and why, to have life make perfect sense. But what if that's not the point? What if the truth is you don't need to have it all figured out to keep going with strength and meaning? The Stoics didn't offer a map for every question. They didn't claim to understand every twist in life's path. But they offered something far more powerful, a way to walk with dignity through the unknown. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the Roman Empire, wrote these words not as a conqueror, but as a man trying to understand his own inner life. Don't demand that events happen as you wish. Welcome events in your life as they actually happen. That's not resignation, it's wisdom. It's the recognition that life will surprise you, but you don't have to be surprised by your own response. You may not choose the storm, but you can choose how you walk through it. There's a certain peace that comes when you stop needing the whole picture and start focusing on just the next right step. It could be as small as choosing to show up kindly, being honest, even when it's hard, taking care of your body, your mind, your spirit, refusing to quit on what you value, just because it's uncertain matters of sin. These small acts are not meaningless. They are meaning, because the most meaningful lives are not always built on clarity. They're built on consistency. Seneca wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." Let that sink in. You're not supposed to know it all yet. You're not behind. You're not broken because you feel lost. You're growing. You're learning. You're walking forward, step by honest step. And that alone is a life worth living. Sometimes we search for a sense of purpose that's loud and certain, a passion so obvious it silences every doubt. But many times, meaning doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives in stillness, in how you treat people, in how you hold yourself when no one's watching, in how you choose integrity when confusion tries to break you. You don't need answers to live well. You need intention. Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So don't wait for perfect understanding before you give yourself permission to live fully. Let the questions remain unanswered and live well anyway. Let the path stay foggy and still move forward one clear step at a time. You may not know what it all means, but you can still make this moment mean something. And if life feels uncertain right now, if you're wondering whether it's all going somewhere, take a breath. You are here, alive, aware, able to choose your next act with care and courage. That's not nothing, that's power. Not the power to control everything, but the power to continue with grace, with presence, with heart. So if you find yourself searching for meaning, but the answers don't come, remember this: the act of living well is meaning, even when it's quiet, even when it's slow, even when you're still figuring it out, because life doesn't always give clarity, but it always offers the next moment. Use it wisely, live it honestly, and let that be enough. You don't need the full picture, you just need to keep going.